and go find something because there's a part of the outfit that I didn't want the public to be able to say that this doesn't work right, this doesn't fit right. And you have to think about, if you were the person who is giving instruction to these officers, you better have that part perfect. And only perfection in the eyes of your institution, what your institution says is acceptable. Also realizing that people that see you, if you're the first person they see coming in the door, they're going to think management doesn't have its act together. If you ever, I hate to use this as an example, but I will. You ever go to a mall and see a security officer in a mall that is either leaning up against the wall with their hands in their pockets, or they're sitting reading a magazine, or they're talking to people as they move on? What's your impression? Are you going to take instructions from that person if there's an emergency? I mean, you're going to feel comfortable doing it. It does make a difference. So what you do is quasi-military, you're on display, and you got to raise the bar. And by raising the bar, you got to make sure that your performance, you can't tell someone, I guess I can't do that in front of the camera. You can't tell somebody, don't hold up the wall, if you're standing there holding up the wall. You can't tell someone, this aggravates everyone, having your hands in your pockets. And why does that take place? Would you come up here for a second, Lauren? So, if Lauren is advancing upon me, and I'm concerned about it, and I want to stop her from doing that, what I want you to do is reach up and put your hand on my throat, okay? I can't throw my pants at her, and that's where my hands are. So where my hands have to be is either at a comfortable position here, or they might be here. On some occasions, we say get back here, but that's not really quick enough. And what you have to be thinking about on a daily basis is the fact that you are subject to attack at any given time. So now, if Lauren were to advance on me again, that's all that it takes. We're not talking about knockdown fighting, we're talking about protecting yourself. Thank you very much, have a seat. All we're talking about doing is being in a position to protect yourself. You can't do it leaning up against a wall. You have difficulty doing it if you're talking on the phone or talking to somebody else because you can't even see what took place or what's coming at you. So does that make sense? It's setting the example by making sure that if you tell somebody they can or cannot do something, that you've demonstrated that yourself. This is difficult, and as I mentioned, has to do with footwear, it has to do with the creases in your pants and your shirts and what have you. Now, who's wearing dark leather shoes that are shined on a regular basis? That's wearing a uniform. Anybody? No one wants to admit that their shoes are shined or are not shined or whatever. Somebody's got on, who has on dark leather shoes? Okay, come on up, please. Come on up.
You? I don't know, they're not shined.
Let's see. Yeah, they are. That's pretty good. Turn around, face the audience. Thank you. So, get your hands out of your pockets, please. Thank you. It's difficult to be thinking about these things on a regular basis. What you would hope would happen. Go ahead and put your hands in your pockets. Go ahead and put it back in your pockets. Here comes a supervisor. Here's an officer on duty. As soon as that supervisor comes around the corner, you want to get the hands out of the pockets because he's going to tell me to do it. And it's got to be that kind of muscle memory that's stimulated by the fact that you, as a supervisor, are going to tell them to do that. So, now you have the top button on your collar button, and some do and some do not. What's the uniform? What is it? How's it supposed to be? Is it supposed to be buttoned or unbuttoned?
Top one undone.
Top one undone. So he didn't know that, so he has difficulty telling officers that they have to do that because he did. So it should be in writing somewhere that this is how the uniform is supposed to be presented. And the pants have to be of a length that they cover your socks. We would prefer to have them without a break, which is difficult, but that is the military uniform way. So not to have a break, not to have high water pants, so it looks like they're ready, prepared for the flood. But those shoes look good. Are they spit shine? Mine are a little bit shiny because I put polish on them, and I wouldn't get in front of you without having it that way. But the crease in the pants is important. Thank you. Have a seat. Now, the other thing that is difficult I have problems with this all the time. It's dark in my house, and I don't turn on all the lights in the dresser area, so I have gone out and gotten up in front of an audience and noticed that one sock was blue and one sock was black, because I couldn't tell the difference. People see that. So then I had to spend the whole time kind of crouching down so nobody would see my socks. But you have to make sure that if you are going to be in front of people, which you are, that at the very least that you're wearing the same color and that your socks are adequate in length. It looks, have you ever seen somebody in a formal presentation sitting in a chair in the front of the audience and their socks are real short and you see their skin up above it? It looks tacky. It looks unprofessional. So you want to make sure that you tell people when you're talking about uniforms that you don't have to wear knee socks, that your socks should at least go up to your calf so that when you're sitting down, you don't have a lot of skin showing, especially if you got 14 tattoos on your legs, and that's not uniform. Either everybody gets 14 tattoos or nobody does. We'll talk about that coming up. The trousers need to be of a certain length without having a break, and they need to have a distinctive crease. Shirts need to be properly fitted with proper creases. This is difficult. And it's difficult based on your body and your weight and your tailoring and so forth. And all clothes are made differently, and some are form-fitting and some are not. So you have to think about what looks proper. Now, in the military, they call it a gig line. And the gig line is a line that consists of the hem of your shirt and the fly on your trousers and your belt buckle all being in one straight line. And I'm not going to demonstrate this now, but if you think about it, if I were to move my belt buckle over here and my shirt is tucked in over here, people look at you and think, he's lopsided. There's something wrong here, or he doesn't know how to put on his clothes. And the proper way to do this, and you have to demonstrate it, is you have to, when you are putting your pants on, pulling your pants up, tucking your shirt in, you need to grasp the shirt on both sides and pull it back straight and check the gig line in a mirror, because you're not wearing a tie that can cover it. I'm lucky that way. But all of it has to be in a line. Why? Because the public recognizes that, particularly people who might have had experience in either the military or law enforcement wearing a uniform. And in their estimation, in their mind, seriously, they will say, this person can't even put on a uniform straight. They obviously don't have the professionalism to tell me what to do, because they can't even get their uniform organized, and obviously management isn't doing their job. I fly almost every week. And if I have the experience of someone in TSA not doing things properly, I ask to see a supervisor. I don't create a ruckus, but I'll tell them this person here is a little heavy-handed and that's not necessary. And I want to tell you why. And I've never had anybody tell me we don't want to know that. You know, if I was to bang on the table and complain, I'm not going to be treated that way, well, then you're going to have a problem. But you don't want someone from the public coming in and saying that person who can't even tuck his shirt in or can't even keep his hands out of his pockets is telling me that I can't carry water in here. And you do have restrictions, you do have rules that you have to enforce no matter where you work. There are rules that you should have in writing. And as I said earlier, if it's not in writing, it didn't happen. So you need to have, and I'm not sure what your organization does with this, I didn't ask in advance. You need to have a code of conduct for you. This is how you do your job. This is what is expected and this is what is tolerated. You need to have a written code of conduct for visitors. And you as a supervisor need to have a copy of that with you. I would suggest that it's laminated in a 3x5 size so you can show it to people. And the reason for that is if I come up and go, Miguel, you're going to have to leave here now. He goes, what? I paid to get in here. No, we're not allowing you here today. You have to leave. His question is going to be, what did I do? I need to be able to show, here are our rules, and it's posted right there. You saw it coming in. And besides that, my other officer told you that you couldn't do this anymore. If you don't have those things going for you, you're going to have a battle. Okay? What am I? Okay, sorry.
Keep going.
Keep going?
Yeah. All right.
Were you moving me out of the picture?
Yeah.
Okay. So, the shirt's fitted properly with a proper crease. Material is pulled tight to eliminate bunching. I'm 10 pounds over my normal weight. I work out twice a day. I have trouble when I travel all the time keeping my weight off, so I have trouble having my shirt fit the way that I want to? The answer to that is get a bigger shirt. It's not that we're concerned about people's fitness, we're concerned about how their clothing fits, and if your clothing looks like it's too tight or you can't fit into it or whatever, that's something that sticks in the public mind, and that's something that officers will criticize if your clothes don't fit. So I have the same problem. Rob tells me all the time before I'm going on a trip, make sure you can get into your pants before you leave. Because I've had to go out to Walmart at the last minute and pick up something in a larger size because it didn't make it look good in front of an audience. You're in front of an audience every day. You want your uniforms to fit. What's the definition of the word uniform? Anybody want to help me? It's right up here on the screen, so you shouldn't have a hard time. Uniform means the same. So if you have got, I'm trying to think who's the worst violator of this. Those 50s era restaurants, you know, the diners, where they have the women wear all these pins for whatever pin they can collect. They've got them all over the place. It's kind of cute, but it's cute for a 50s area diner. You're not in a 50s area diner. So if I've got one of these, everybody should have one of these if I'm wearing it on my uniform. If I have one of these, a name tag, then everybody should have a name tag. I think it's great that you have your names on your shorts. These are sharp. These are very sharp. And it also is real helpful if somebody can look at you and call you by your name. Okay? But if Miguel decides that he's going to be patriotic today and have a thing of an American flag and wear that on the left-hand side, then everybody needs to have one of those. Does that make sense? So your uniform inspection, I don't care what the uniform is, if it's a uniform, whether it's a blazer uniform or a police type uniform or a golf shirt, they all got to be the same. And once again, it deals with how people visualize you as an organization, how professional you are and what you are to do. In your situation, I know you got a mouse here and you got a dog here. You know, that's not the uniform I'm talking about, obviously. Okay, so the gig line needs to be straight. If you're wearing a tie, it needs to be a clip-on tie. Why? Yes,
They
sir.
can choke you out with your own tie.
Absolutely. They can either choke you out or lead you around the room. So it's a life safety issue, and if you're wearing a tie, it needs to come off if somebody pulls on it. You need to have an ID badge of some type somewhere, whether it's a photocopied badge or whether it's a card, an access card badge, whatever, but everybody needs to have something saying, I'm with the institution. And it's nice to have your name on it. Women in particular, at a number of institutions, object to having their entire name on the badge because they're a little bit concerned about stalking or somebody getting the name, and I can appreciate that. So if that is a concern, then you can put the first name on, and that's maybe a safer feature. But regardless, something needs to say that my name is Joe and I'm with this institution, so that when you go up, people from another country for whom English is a second language may not understand. They may think everybody in this country wears these kinds of shirts. You need to have something that looks official so that you can say security and with this institution or protection services or whatever you want to call it, if you're in a uniform. If you're not in a uniform, then now you do need to say, I'm with this institution. If you're a supervisor that is at the level where you're not wearing a uniform, you need to be able to say, hi, my name is Sean and I'm security director here and here's my ID. You need to be able to show people that you are official. Special awards, if they're approved by management, we give out at the completion of the Certified Institutional Protection Specialist, CIPS, completion of that program, we give them a pin that can be worn as a lapel pin. And people like to have those kinds of things. It does certify. It shows that they took the trouble to go through a certification program. But everybody that has them needs to have the written permission to be able to wear those. You can't have a few that do and a few that don't. And no other accessories are authorized. And we do see this a lot. It's difficult, particularly in a climate where the weather changes on a regular basis. If one person is wearing a jacket, nobody else is, that one person's out of uniform, or everybody else is. So you either wear jackets or you don't. What I see in violation most of the time is long sleeves or short sleeves. You have both uniforms. If you have a shirt like you're wearing today, and you've got a t-shirt underneath, is a white t-shirt uniform, or do you need a black t-shirt? What's the uniform? And once again, we like to see everyone wearing the same thing and have that, you put that out in the briefing prior to the start of the shift. This is difficult. It's difficult because now we're getting into people's personal lives. How do you tell somebody you don't smell good? You know, do you ever have anybody show up for a shift that didn't smell good? Yeah. And why is that? For one thing, it's important because people who are involved in substance abuse, their personal hygiene kind of goes down the drain. And that's an indication that maybe there's another problem. Maybe they got an illness. Maybe they can't afford to have even laundry soap. And maybe you need to have a discussion with them. I would not stand somebody up in front of an inspection line at a guard mount briefing and say, Joe, you're smelling pretty raunchy today. You can't do that. But you can say, I need to talk to you immediately after the meeting, and say you're having a problem here because we know you have an odor. I had an occasion several years ago when this took place, and we found that the person was having some mental issues and needed to get in for some counseling, and actually broke down during the meeting where I said, you got some body odor here that you got to deal with, and I noticed your uniforms haven't been cleaned. And he was having some real personal issues, and we did get him into some counseling, but I was hesitant to do it. I had another occasion where a security officer told me that people that were working on that shift were offensive. And we had the supervisors handle it in the most gracious way that we could do, which was to pull that person aside and in privacy tell them, this is what the level that is acceptable, and you need to meet that level. Because it says right in your code of conduct that you must have good standards of personal hygiene, that your hair has to be properly groomed, you can't wear excessive jewelry. Why are piercings a concern? Why are yes sir?
They can be grabbed.
They can be grabbed and torn and used to control you. And not only that, would you allow it if everybody had the same piercing? No, that's not a uniform thing, but one person who has a piercing stands out from all the rest. And I'm sorry, it's a conservative viewpoint, but a lot of people are opposed to having any kind of facial jewelry. So it kind of puts your department in a light that you don't want to, but there's no reason why they can't put it in as soon as they go out the door on the way home. But while they're on duty representing your institution, you should not have any allowing of piercings or facial jewelry. Ear studs, that's your determination. No earrings. Earrings are a safety concern. Ear studs, I don't know. That's something that you got to think about, because if you say you can wear an ear stud, the next thing you know, someone's going to have 17 of them. So we just prefer no facial jewelry, and they, like I said, they can put it on when they leave. This is what we don't want to see. And these pictures did not come from security operations. They came from online, but I have seen those kinds of things on people in uniform. And it was disturbing to me. It was disturbing because of my military background, but also disturbing because I recognize that people are not going to pay any attention to what this individual is telling them if they're telling them you can or cannot do this. They're going to be looking and saying, how did he get that thing in his ear, and how did he get his nose like that? There was a thing on the news just recently, I don't know if anyone saw it, it was about a lady who had a snake that she was carrying around her neck, and she had did you see that? She had a piercing in her ear, and the snake went through the ear piercing and got stuck. So she had to call the fire department, I believe, to get the snake out of her ear. I don't think that you're going to have that problem, but it could very well happen if you're not careful about what you allow and what you don't allow. What we're going to do now is take a quick break, and you're already divided into groups of 3. So we're going to conduct a briefing, and you're going to do it. I'm not going to do it. But this is the information. So you're going to talk among yourselves about who is going to present this, but you're going to talk about what the uniform of the day is. And what we want to do is we're going to go around the room, and I would like one representative from each table to be able to give this briefing. And you're going to say, this is the uniform of the day. And the first officer is going to cover the following areas, and this is you talking to the other people at the table who are your security officers. Number 1, you're going to do this. Number 2, you're going to do this. We've got a special event in the grand ballroom at 3 o'clock, and 2 suspicious Caucasian males between 25 and 30 years old wearing this kind of clothing have been seen. We're concerned about them. Let me put the rest of this up and I'll go back to it. They were seen near the main entrance. One has a pencil-thin mustache. The other has a 2 to 3 day growth of full facial hair. They seem to be paying particular attention to the cashier's operation and the location of lobby cameras. Your response to them is. So what we're going to do, we're going to go to each table. Do we have time to have everyone at the table rotate and do this, or do we just need to do it with one person?
One person, I think, is
Okay.
better.
So you're gonna, and your entire table is gonna come to the front of the room, and you're gonna conduct that inspection and guard mount briefing, whoever the selected member is from your particular group. And I will sit with your table so you can instruct me in the crease in my pants and my gig line. And okay, anybody have any questions before we do this? It's important to recognize how it can go. And the problems that take place in this, the first time you do it, everybody's going to go, what are you doing this for? We never did this before. And the answer has to be, we want to make sure that everyone is on the same page here and that we're doing things in a particular method, because for your safety and the safety of our guests, we want to make sure that everyone knows what's going on today, what may take place later in the day, or something that happened a couple of days ago. It's for your safety. That's the reason that we're doing these things, is life safety. So anyone have any questions before we get started and how this takes place? You're gonna line up your table, the other two people, and you're gonna actually conduct an inspection, and I'll help you if you have a problem on how to do this, because it's pretty simple. And the way that you do it is you start out by you just walk in front of everyone and you look at them from their shoes to their hair, and then you go around behind them and you look at the back of what they're wearing and their hair in the back and whatever, and then you tell them to relax. They don't have to stand at attention and salute, but you'd like everyone to be standing in a comfortable position, and my preference is that they either be standing with their hands in front of them or their hands at their side. You can decide how you want that to go, but you don't want people standing there like this and making a joke out of it and thinking that it's just something that we have to do because we're told this is a formal inspection. So it is best, and I understand that you may not do it this way. You may end up doing it a different way. The difficult thing is, if you do it with everybody sitting down, then you can't observe how their clothes fit or what they're doing. I don't want anyone to correct someone else in front of all of us on something with their clothes. And what I want you to do is say, okay, great, you're looking good, I'd like to talk to you afterwards. Okay, and you can point out anything that you feel is a problem. Are you going to embarrass people doing it? Yeah, I'm sorry, but we're here in front of the public. And if you don't look right, you as a supervisor need to correct that so that that doesn't happen. So we're not going to embarrass anybody here. What you're going to say is, I need to talk to you later. If everyone, talk to you later, talk to you later, talk to you later, we're not making a big deal out of it. It may be something that, your hair isn't trimmed properly, or your shirt, with the collar's this way, or the thing unbuttoned or buttoned. But you have to have the opportunity to observe everyone. And the other difficult thing is, if you do this in an area where there's people walking by, they're not paying attention to you. They're going to be distracted. So you've got to do it in an area that's private. And it may be in a classroom, it may be in a hallway where you haven't opened to the public yet. But you can't be making corrections in people's uniforms and what they're wearing with phones ringing, people walking back and forth and being disrupted. Does that make sense? Okay. Any questions before we do this? Okay.
Just to clarify, this scenario is an incident that occurred the previous day, so you're discussing it in briefing, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
So, we're going to start with this table right here. And who is going to be the inspecting supervisor? Have you decided that? Why are you all looking at the guy? You're all going to come up here first. That's the first thing you got to do. You got to come up. And Rob, I'd like you to stand in line with him if you would.
Okay.
I'll do it.
Who's the inspecting officer?
Here. Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
So what we want you to do is stand in line, in a straight line, and tell me, Doug, if this is okay?
Yep.
This work out for you?
Yep.
So let's everybody stand the same way. Either your hands in front, your hands are at your side, or the hands are, where you're going to put them. Let's do them in front like this, okay? Go ahead. Do your inspection first. Okay, what I want you to do, let's go back for a minute. You may have to stop in front of each person, but you want to look from toes going up and make sure that you're looking at everything that that person is wearing. He's not wearing an ID badge, but he doesn't have one. And then you move on to the next one. You may, whatever's comfortable for you, but falling over your own feet is not going to impress anybody. So you want to get used to, you got to do this every shift that you supervise, okay? And walk all, and then go all the way around the back, okay?
Can we set this up so
We're dead on.
it's a line like this, and that way I can see both faces? Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
Not like this.
Well, I see the back of her head.
Okay.
So if this line, if you're here,
Okay.
face that way, and you there, and then you're
Okay.
there, then I can see.
Okay.
Move up just a little bit, like spread it out. Come on.
Spread out.
You're out there, so I can see, and then you're looking at him this way.
Okay. Thanks, Doug. All right. How do I look? Yeah. All right. Forgot my name badge.
Yeah,
All
well,
right.
Okay, what I want you to do is I want you to tell Jordan that you learned today that the proper uniform is with the top button unbuttoned. And ask him to go ahead and do that.
can you please unbutton your top button?
That
That's
works.
our policy.
That's our policy.
The new policy.
Our new policy.
Okay. Okay, now what are you gonna do? Now you have to go to them and say, okay, thank you all, relax.
Thank you all, relax. So yesterday we had 2 suspicious Caucasian males.
No, let's back up for a second, sorry.
Oh, we have a special event today at 3 o'clock at the Grand Ballroom. And,
You didn't do anything about the first part.
oh,
So you gotta tell them, this is what the uniform is today. Short sleeve shirt, okay, no jackets. Just what you're wearing is fine. I mean, but you gotta tell them every time, because you have people that are gonna be different, okay? And they gotta understand what you're saying. And officer number one, we're gonna have you working the front door, and we're gonna have you working the loading dock, and we're gonna have you working in the vending area, whatever. But you gotta be able to do that at that briefing to make sure and they probably know. They know when they came to work where they're supposed to, but if you don't tell them, somebody's gonna get it wrong, okay? So start at the top and go down and do that.
okay. So the uniform today is shorts, shirt, pants, first button unbuttoned. And Officer 1, you'll cover the front area, front door. Officer 2, you'll cover the gallery. And Officer 3, you'll cover the vending area. And today we also have a special event in the Grand Ballroom at 3 o'clock. And yesterday we had 2 suspicious Caucasian males between the ages of 25 and 30, medium height, and wearing dark clothing. They were seen near the main entrance. One has a pencil-thin mustache. The other has a 2 to 3 day growth of facial hair. They seem to be paying attention to the cashier's operation and the lobby cameras. So, as in your response if they're seen.
What are you
Ask
gonna
them.
do about it? If they see them, yeah.
So if you see them, what are you to do?
Let you know.
Is that acceptable?
Yes.
Okay. Now you have to understand, you gotta act as though everyone here has never worked here before. And this is their first shift. You're giving them their instructions, so you really gotta be positive about it. And what you need to say is, regardless of what his answer was, he's gonna let you know, you're the supervisor. You see these 2 guys, I want you to get a hold of me, call dispatch right now and ask for a supervisor. And make sure they understand. You gotta tell them. Does everybody get that? Everybody understands what the instructions are? And then ask them if they have any questions.
Do you guys have any questions?
Great, go to your assigned post.
Go to your signpost.
Thank you. Give them a hand.
Thank you, ma'am.
You see how it has to be done? And everybody's gonna do it differently. And everybody's not gonna be in the same tone, everybody's not, you gotta do what works for you. You know, you may wanna be more casual about it, but you gotta make sure all the instructions get out. let's go. Table number 2. Who's gonna be the inspector? You're gonna inspect, okay.
Well, can you do me a favor, so I can see your face? Can you stand here, and that way? Sure. You can see who's talking. And then you guys are in kind of a line, so I can see your each back a little bit, this way. And right by your shoulder. Perfect.
Whenever you're ready.
Good.
I noticed you're missing a shoe.
Damn.
So the uniform of the day is, we're all going to be in short sleeve shirts today, jackets, no today. Both shoes need to be worn today. It's just one of those things. So let's go ahead and take care of the jackets, and then we're going to be moving Officer 1 to the following areas today. You'll be at the front door. Officer 2, you're probably going to be in the garden today. And then for the special event, we're going to have you roaming the special event just to make sure. It's going to be in the Grand Ballroom at 1300, at 3 p.m.
With both shoes.
Both shoes
Okay.
requested.
Thank you.
Pretty high-class people, but you never know. Yesterday, we had 2 suspicious Caucasian males, 25 to 30 years old, medium dark hair, pencil-thin mustache. The other one had 2 to 3 days of hair growth. They were seeming to be paying particular attention to cash handling in the lobby. We need to monitor the situation carefully if they come on site. Inform the supervisor immediately. Monitor it until someone can then, be on the floor to give you a second set of eyes. All right? Go team, go.
Great, thank you. Give a hand.
Next table.
Rob, get in on this also, please.
Okay.
All right, good morning, guys. Welcome to work.
Morning.
Before we start shift and get out there, we're going to go through look guidelines real quick, make sure everyone is in accordance with our policy, okay? How you doing?
Good, how are you?
Good. Any reason for the tie off to the side?
Oh,
Just kind of caught?
oh, windy out there.
Beautiful. Yeah, thank you so much.
Okay.
Look great.
Thank you.
Morning, Steve.
Morning. Good, thanks.
Bill, morning. How are you? Good. Good. Good, good. All right, thank you, gentlemen. We'll go ahead and relax. All right, so for today, as far as look goes, we're going to have everyone wearing jackets because we do have a formal event at 1500 in the ballroom. So, Bill, I'd like to talk to you after. Thank you so much. Okay. Officer number 1 will have you go ahead and cover the library area. Okay. Officer number 2 will have you cover the main entrance, greeting guests as they're coming in. And then, Bill, if you don't mind, Officer number 3 would like you to cover the event at 1500, again, in the Grand Ballroom. Okay. Yesterday, we had a report of 2 suspicious Caucasian males, aged 25 to 30 years old, medium height, dark clothing. They were observed, seen around the cashier area, particularly watching cash handling procedures. So if at any point during the day we do see these gentlemen on property, one of which had a pencil-thin mustache, the other had 2 to 3 days of facial hair growth. At any point during the day, if you do see them, please contact a supervisor immediately. We'll observe and report their behaviors, and then if necessary, we'll conduct a meet and greet to see what exactly they're doing. Any questions and comments, concerns?
No, sir.
Sure.
Thank you, gentlemen. Have a great day.
Thank you. Give him a hand. Gentlemen.
Good morning. Wait a second. Step back just a little bit so I can see, it's like a V so I can see all of you. So first, and then slide it in. A little close, there it goes. And you could all just take a step forward too. Perfect, thank you.
I'm gonna need you to stand straight. This way.
Pardon me?
I'm gonna need you to stand straight.
I'm standing straight.
No, like towards me, sir.
Oh,
Thank you.
okay.
Alright. Is this a clip-on, sir?
Nope.
I'm gonna need a clip-on. Yeah,
Take care of that.
soon. And a name badge. I'm gonna need you to have a name badge.
I can understand.
It's a clip-on?
No, sir.
Means you get a clip-on, man.
My mom gave me that.
We have one in the boxes ready for you. Don't worry. We
From
got
my
you.
mom?
Yeah, from your mom. She sent it here specifically.
Okay.
And what's with the sweater, buddy?
It's a little chilly outside.
It is, but we're dressed nice today, so we need you to dress. We're wearing suits today. There's an event at 3. Right? All right. So as you know, there's an event at 3, like I just mentioned, and I'm gonna need you at the front door. I'm gonna need you main lobby, and I'm gonna need you roaming around with the actual event. And we're looking for. Yesterday there was about 2 guests, Caucasians. They were roaming around the museum. They were just looking at the cashier and the cameras. So we need to keep an eye on them, and if you see them, thank you. If you see tattoos or piercings on them, and if one of them has a really thin mustache, the other one has 3 days of 5 o'clock shadow, so it's just getting thick. If you see them, just make sure to call control, call anyone in charge, supervisor immediately, and we will proceed from there to see what the gentlemen are doing.
Or you didn't say, you said the 2 Caucasian, were they both, was one of them a woman, or were they both men?
Two Caucasian males.
Because I thought there was
In
a
their
woman
30s.
with a mustache.
And it's possible, I've seen it on the news,
Yeah.
they can, but it's 2 males.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Everything good? Any questions?
Good, thank you. Give him a hand. So, we noticed differences in the way that different people conducted their briefing. Any of them right? Any of them wrong? Anything stand out in particular? It's what you're comfortable with, but the thing that I want you to remember once again is this life safety issue, and the fact that if you're taken to task over something that happens, for example, suppose these 2 suspicious males showed up and injured someone, and your institution knew about it but didn't bother telling anybody about it. Somebody's negligent here, and their negligence can cause someone serious injury or their life. So there's a liability issue, there's a safety issue, and there's an organizational issue, and that's why it's really important that, you know, even though it may seem ridiculous to only brief a couple of people, those are the people that are responsible for the safety of everybody in your institution that entire day. They're responsible for what goes on, and if they aren't aware of what's taking place, and you can't assume that they're going to know what's taking place. Even if there's only one person going on shift, you can't assume that they're going to read the instructions in a pass-on book, or that they're going to have talk to the person who they're relieving. You can't assume that. As a supervisor, you got to make sure they know. Anybody have any questions about that? Okay. The next thing that you got to be concerned about is how you appear to the public, and how the people that you are talking to, how they appear to you. What's their attitude, what's their body language, and what do they see? The way that you stand and walk and approach sends a message to the individual. So if I were to come up to someone, and Miguel, if you'll come up for a second, please. I'd like you to stand right here facing me. And what we're going to do is assume that Miguel has been doing something that's in violation of our rules. It may be minor, whatever, but let's just say that I'm one of these people that likes to show that I'm in charge and wants to make sure that everybody knows. You can't do that in here. We don't allow that. Do you understand what I'm talking about? What'd I do wrong? Anybody help me out? What'd I do wrong? Yes, sir.
You were yelling at him and touched him, like you went like this.
I invaded his
Yeah,
personal
yeah,
space.
his bubble.
And I didn't touch him, but I came close, and it was offensive because I was making an aggressive move. He hadn't done anything bad. It might have been that he got too close to a painting or that he was eating something. We don't, I mean, his offense, if it was a major offense, we'd be approaching a different way. But we're going to talk about this in a bit. You have personal space around you that no one should invade. Now, I understand that in crowded situations, it's unavoidable. If you're standing in a line, it's unavoidable. But someone approaching you from the front, your personal space, for your own personal safety, needs to be the distance that they can reach you with an arm or reach you with a leg. And if somebody violates that space, then you need to make that space more comfortable and in a more professional manner so that if Miguel starts advancing on me, I'm going to say, sir, you want to just stand right there for a second? I need to talk to you. You can do that. And there's a nice way to do it and a not so nice way to do it based upon, I'm going to look at and see how he is standing and how he approaches and what his facial expressions are. I'm going to try to determine his anxiety level, if he is anxious about something or if he's under the influence or whatever. But if I come up going, hey, what are you doing? You can't do that here. What's it? Now, and he decides to grab me, as Lauren tried to do earlier, I can't protect myself because my hands are in my pockets. And it doesn't mean that you gotta approach him like this. We're not trying to instigate somebody to fight. What we're trying to do is to do this in the safest manner possible. We're gonna show this later, but I want to mention it now for the first time. I would hope that regardless of this class, that all of you start practicing this today, and you do it when you go home, and you do it when you go to the grocery store, or you go to the movie theater or whatever. If someone is approaching you and approaching your personal space, or you're approaching them, this gives them a full body target. And it also gives them the ability, we're not gonna do a martial arts class here, but that's where some of these things come from, is martial arts and self-defense. What we're gonna do is make it more difficult for them to attack. And now, instead of giving them a full body target, we're gonna reduce the target by turning to at a 45-degree angle, which you can't stop and say, let's see, is that 30, and you can't, it's gotta be automatic. It's gotta be something that you do automatically, because if Miguel shoves me now, go ahead. Go ahead, push hard. I'm like a three-legged stool. He's gonna push me over, I'm off balance. Push me now. A little more difficult. Why? If he pushes hard enough, he can do it, but if he was to do that, no, I won't show you what I would do. The point is that, go ahead and push hard. I can say, see ya, Miguel. And it's that much easier if you're already turned in a direction so that you have an escape. And it's very important that you do this no matter where you are. If someone wants to take advantage of you, you got to get the hell out of Dodge. Can I say that? I guess. You got to be able to remove yourself and de-escalate the situation, and you can't do it if you're at a disadvantage and you're right in their face. And for one thing, you want to give yourself a little more room, because if they're approaching you and he's still moving forward, you can keep backing up. You can go, well, I won't go through the whole litany of positions. We are going to talk about it. What I want you to think about is don't let yourself get into a position where you're caught flat out and with a violation of your personal space and you have no way to defend yourself. Thank you very much, Miguel. Anybody have any questions about that? So, your hands in your pockets, leaning against the wall, slouching, all of these take away your ability to protect yourself, and they take away the impression that the public has that you're ready to protect yourself. And my favorite, I've been involved in martial arts for a while, so it's automatic for me. I don't want my hands in some places, especially since I'm now older than dirt. I'm not that quick anymore. I don't have time to bring my hands up here. I want to have them right here so I can stop somebody from hitting me, or put my hands up to stop somebody, and you can do that. And I would strongly suggest, how many of you have taken any kind of self-defense training? Anybody? Great. Anybody any formal martial arts training? Good. I would suggest that you start thinking about either taking a class for yourself, not just because of the job that you're in, because it's good for your health, and it's good for your self-satisfaction and your ability to perform your job, so that you don't worry about everybody that approaches you, that you know that there is a method by which you can protect yourself and protect the people that are with you. The policy in this organization, as I assume it is in most organizations, is that security officers will not put their hands on people. And the only time that that'll take place is as a last resort, when there's just no escape. And when you do that, even that has to have a certain level of tolerance. But you're not going to get into a fight. In fact, you're going to walk away from one. And in fact, you're going to try to discourage someone else from doing any fighting. And a lot of that has to do with your body language and how you approach an individual and the stance that you take.
Let me back up and read something about this slide. Okay. The way that officers stand, the way that they walk, and the way they approach people all have a way of broadcasting an image and a message. It is unacceptable for officers in uniform on duty to stand around with their hands in their pockets, leaning up against a wall or a stationary object, or to slouch. The way they look, the way they stand, and even the way they walk tell observers about their state of readiness and how alert they may or may not be. It is not enough to just put in writing or present in a class. One of the most tedious tasks of a supervisor is to continually comment, criticize, and correct the posture and body language of officers on duty.
Thank you.
Okay.
So, in the military, there is a position of parade rest. And what that position consists of is standing with your feet slightly spread, shoulder width apart, comfortable distance, with your hands in the small of your back, like so. We're not dictating that that's how you have to stand. But if you're trying to assume a position that's comfortable for you, particularly if you have to stand in one location for a period of time, it's one of the safer positions because you can flex your knees, you can look around, you can visualize an area, you can observe. The only thing it doesn't do is give you the capability, if people are getting close, of protecting yourself. But this particular position is one that you can recommend, particularly if officers have to stand in one location for any period of time, because you can't stand at attention, you can't lock your knees or you're going to pass out eventually, and your legs will lock up. You've got to be in a position where you can move slightly without dancing around, without giving the public the impression that you can't handle that particular position. This is the most difficult thing for people who are used to being armed or were in the military or were in law enforcement one time. What do you do with your hands? And it's kind of a natural thing. And the reason that law enforcement does this, I don't know if you're aware of this, to stand with your hands on your hip, because you don't want anybody getting a hold of your weapon. So you want your hand as close to your weapon so that you can block them from having that particular, but you're not wearing a weapon. And the positions that we're talking about, the security positions that we're talking about, what does this tell you? I think the best way that we should do it is to demonstrate it. So let's see how we should do this. Would you come up, Jordan, please? And Javier, would you come up, please? And Tommy, would you come up, please? I'd like all three of you to stand here and face the audience. Okay. I'd like you to put your hands on your hips. Okay. And I'd like you to put your arms like this. I'd like you to do this. So, what does this tell you before he even says a word? If he approaches you in this manner, or you approach him and he's standing, what does that body language tell you? Anybody?
Not approachable.
Talk to me, I've already heard it. And you better do what I tell you to do, or I'll get you. Doesn't that say that without saying anything else? Okay, thank you, have a seat. What does this tell you?
Don't talk to me.
I'm closed, the subject's closed. I'm not listening. This is the way it's gonna be. Does that make sense? Thank you, go ahead. What does this tell you? Talk to me. I'm relaxed, I'm open, I'm ready to hear what you got to say. Saying, no, I'm not.
I get it.
But do you see the biggest difference in just body position makes? Just the way that this is what the public thinks when they see you. Good, thank you. So, it's important that we look at the different positions of body language and we think about what the public impression is going to be. You have to constantly do this. I don't like doing it either. But every time that you approach someone's post, whether they're in a walking patrol or they're in a standing post or what have you, you need to remind them not to do those things that we're talking about. You need to say, you need to get your hands out of your pockets, okay? or you need to not get so close to somebody when you're talking to them, or you need to stand up straight because you're slouching. I gotta tell you, I'm 100% sympathetic with security officers who have to be on their feet for 8 hours. I'm 100% sympathetic. It is so easy to get up close to a table or a wall or something and take a load off. It's so easy to lean on something because it gets tiring doing that. But I'm sorry, that's what the job is. And I gotta tell you that there are posts for people who have physical disabilities that can't meet the rigors of the demand of that particular post, if it's a walking post or a standing post. There are positions for them. But if they're in a patrol situation and they're in a normal officer situation, they gotta be physically capable of staying on their feet. Why? Because if you have an emergency and you gotta dump that place, if you gotta get everybody out and evacuate them, you need somebody who's physically capable of doing it. And if they can't even stand on their feet for 8 hours, I'm sorry, they're not gonna do real well in helping with an evacuation. So it's important that, as I mentioned earlier, you don't want to see this after the second or third time, but as you as a supervisor are making your patrol rounds, you want to see people taking their hands out of their pockets or getting off the wall or standing up straight because they know it's wrong. But if you don't make your patrol rounds, if you as a supervisor don't make it evident that you can show up anytime at any place, that's what they're going to do. I don't know how many of you have done this, but I love going in to a place at 2 or 3 in the morning when it's a 24-hour operation and seeing what's going on. I love doing that. And I have found everything imaginable. Things that you would never believe even possible. Somebody who's got a shift all night long figures out a way to do that because there's nobody watching what's going on. It's your job to stop that from going on if you want that place to be safe and if you want it to be watched the way that it's supposed to, particularly for fire watch. And fire, the greatest threat that we have in all of these things, by the way, is not the person who's drunk, it's not the person who's under the influence of drugs, it's not the person who is a member of a protest group, it's fire. Fires happen more often than any other thing that takes place, and that's why the officers that you supervise got to be alert, got to be moving, got to be looking at what they're supposed to be, and why you have to notice it, and you have to correct them to make sure that they're remaining alert. So, your attitude is going to be directly reflected in their attitude. I want to see an honest show of hands, and I understand that your supervisors are here, but how many of you enjoy what you do? Enjoy what you do when you go to work? Anybody that doesn't enjoy it? Anybody here, show me that on occasion you've come to work and weren't real happy about it. How many of you have done that? Because, yeah, thank you. Because things weren't so good at home in the morning, or the dog did this or whatever, or the kids did this. I mean, we all have those days. But if you bring that to work, and the people that you're dealing with see that you have an attitude, then it's okay for them to have an attitude. And it's okay for your officers to have an attitude. And it's really difficult. You know, the best customer service function that you can perform, you know what that is? Smile. Hi, nice to see you, even if it's not so nice. I don't want to see you or anybody else like you. I'm real glad to have you here. So, your attitude is important. You need to be positive more than you're negative. It's so much nicer to say, sir, we'd really prefer that you watch your children so that they don't hurt themselves running down the hallway, rather than, those are your kids, control them or get out of here. There's a big difference. You're saying the same thing, but you're saying it in a way that the public can accept, because they're going to be, people are resentful anytime they're told not to do something. They're always going to be resentful. You're not going to have somebody hug you and say, that was the best negative instruction I've ever been given, I love you for it. They're not going to do that. But they should be able to shake your hand and say, thank you for telling me in a professional manner. That you can accomplish. And that's really what we're talking about. You lead from the front and not from the rear. It's going to be difficult as things go on in this country. The more violent experiences that we have, the more violent incidents that take place, it's going to be more difficult to get officers to say, yeah, I'll stand there all day and watch for this, if you haven't taken the trouble to do these things that we're talking about now, the very basics, saying that you got to be alert. You gotta be standing up, you gotta be off the wall, you gotta be prepared to take some kind of action, you gotta call a supervisor. That's how you reduce those types of things from taking place. It's one of the best preventive measures you have is you as supervisors, your officers as observers, and other staff members being alert and aware. That's your prevention and protection against all these things that we're talking about. So it's real important that you set the example and you lead from the front to say this is the way that we're going to do it. You got to delegate when possible, because if you do it now and you do everything that's even slightly difficult, then everybody's going to say, Sam will do it. I don't have to worry about it. Sam takes care of those things. And I hear that all the time. It's your job. But why? Because Sam's not going to be there all the time. Everyone needs to understand it. This is what we do. Here it is in writing. And we're going to talk about some of these written things that we'd like to see you carry with you. And there's nothing wrong, there is absolutely nothing wrong with injecting humor. I have to tell you, I used to teach in 2 different law enforcement training academies, and I taught in the military, and I don't remember a single time where they said, be funny. It wasn't in the instructions. I also don't remember a single time where they said, be nice. Because law enforcement doesn't teach customer service. The military doesn't teach customer service. Private security needs to put forward, these are the tenets of good customer service and making people feel comfortable so that they'll cooperate with you. Okay? So if a little bit of humor does it, if smiling and laughing along with somebody, I mean, obviously there are times that it's inappropriate. But when you can, you want to make them feel as comfortable as possible. Now, as supervisors, how much time do you spend in the office? You have to do scheduling, you have to review reports, you have to do initial reports yourself. There's a bunch of things that require you to be in the office. But there is a degree that I would like everyone to consider obtaining, okay? And it's called an MBW. Anybody have that degree? Anybody gone and taken that kind of training? Anybody know what that degree stands for, the MBW? Means management by walking around. That's all it is. Because if you're sitting behind a desk, you don't know what's taking place out on the floor. You don't know what kind of difficulty people are getting into or how they're handling a situation, and they're looking to you for guidance. You got to be there to see it. It doesn't mean you have to handle everything personally, but you can probably correct the situation from taking place just by virtue of the fact that you were out of there seeing it. So you need to get out of the office as often as possible. How many of you have ever worked in retail? Okay, and what do they tell you is the first thing that you do when somebody walks in the store? What's the first thing that they teach in retail?
Greet them.
To greet them, the retail greeting. It doesn't mean that as a supervisor that you got to greet everybody coming in, but what it does mean is that as a supervisor, you want all your officers to know that you're there. And that means that you got to visit every post. And if you only do it once at 8:15 and you never do it again before the end of the shift, you know what the attitude of the security officers is going to be? 8:20, he's gone now. He ain't coming back. He's down there looking in trade magazines. And people do understand that. So it's real important that you get out of the office and make a round at 8:15, go back at 8:25, see what's going on. Or if there are night shifts involved, come in at 10 o'clock at night or 2 o'clock in the morning. It is just amazing what you find. That's how you correct things. And I don't want people to be afraid of me as a supervisor. I want them to be afraid of losing their job because they weren't doing it. And it's a difficult position, but that's the position you're in. That's what supervisors have to do to provide for your personal safety. I want to know that when I'm here today, that you're out there watching out for my safety. And I don't know that unless certain things take place, one of which is I don't ever see you standing up against a wall or holding your hands in your pocket or doing whatever. Patrolling is a key function to sound prevention and threat mitigation. It is the key function. The most effective deterrent. I said that fire was the greatest threat, that they take place more often than anything else. The greatest deterrent to fire is, guess what? Patrol. Yeah, thank you. It's not the smoke detectors or the sprinklers, because they're not right there looking to smell the smoke, to see what's going on. It's you on patrol saying that that socket is smoldering, or those fluorescent lights are flickering, or there's something going on here. So your patrol function will notice, I don't know any smoke detectors that see people fighting. I don't know any sprinklers that will put out a situation correct a situation with a lost child, or people who are having a domestic dispute. So the systems are there, the video surveillance, all of those things are important, but they're tools. And the most important function in protecting your institution is the security person and their rounds, and you're backing that up by making sure that they're doing what they're supposed to be doing. Their performance is directly related to the level and professionalism of supervision. When the cat's away, the mice will definitely play, and they'll do it on a regular basis. I know I've done it. And I'm not going to tell you what I used to do when I had to work night shifts. I will tell you, I always tried to find out where they parked the ambulance. You know why? Not because I was concerned about anybody's medical condition. There's a bed in that ambulance. And when somebody has to work, particularly if they're working a double shift, if they're doing something else during the day, they'll look for a place to lay down. So you want to make sure that people are aware that they can be inspected at any time, at any place. Anybody have any questions so far? Particularly about the patrolling function. Okay? The military calls it show the colors. All we're talking about, showing the color, you are the color. It's like waving the flag. That's what we're talking about. So you, as a supervisor, going around with your name tag, or showing that you represent the institution, tells the public that somebody's walking around waving, and not they're waving the flag. They're here. They represent the institution. You got to be visible. You got to be seen. Think about it, particularly in museum functions, actually any place that there are any kind of exhibits. You will see some people that are paying attention to the exhibits. You will see some people that are paying attention to the other people that are in the visitor group. You'll see other people that are paying attention to where there's cameras or where there's security. And all of those things to me are kind of suspicious. I want to know what is the function? What are they supposed to be doing? Well, they should be enjoying themselves. That's what they came here for. You're not going to see it unless you're out in among the public and seeing what is going on. And you should see visually every security person that you're supervising no less than once every 30 minutes. Is that a standard? No. Is it a rule? No. It's a good practice. And why is that a good practice? Certainly they can mess something up 15 minutes after you saw them. But if they know that there's a chance that at least every half an hour a supervisor's coming around, they're probably going to start thinking, well, today it was 20 minutes, or yesterday they doubled back and came right back again. Maybe I need to stand up and do my job. It's not the nice thing to think about. It's the necessary thing to think about, that as a supervisor you got to keep moving. And that presence shouldn't follow a schedule, but it should occur when it's least expected, especially after normal operating hours. Administrators, those who determine the budget, base their decisions on how evident what you're doing, your performance, your paperwork, your attitude, on how evident it is to them that that is taking place as they desire. That's how budgets are determined. Anybody disagree with me? It's difficult to say, I need 2 more officers, when someone can say all they do is talk to each other, or all they do is hang out and play with their cell phones or do whatever. So that's why, I don't know, do you have a rule here that you cannot carry a cell phone when you're working? Do you have that rule also? Some places issue cell phones and use those for emergency communications, but the rule should be that unless it's for official business, they shouldn't have one. And if they don't need it for communication, because I guarantee you, I mean, I love this now. When you go to the airport, you go to the store, anywhere, you can't go 5 feet without seeing somebody standing there either texting someone or talking on a cell phone. Do you notice that? If you want to see people go into cardiac arrest, disconnect the cell tower. Because we've gotten used to that. And the important matter that we have to be concerned about is now we're talking about life safety, meaning our officers have to be observant at all times of things going on. They're going to miss it if they're looking at that screen, just like traffic accidents are caused by looking at that screen. Does that make sense? So that's something that you want to be looking at, and it's something that you want to make sure that the troops are aware. They're going to come around. In fact, I like to see the rule that if you're not supposed to have a cell phone, that either you're going to surrender or you don't work here anymore if you violate that standard. Why? Because your job's to observe and report. It doesn't say anywhere observe your cell phone. Okay? I know that's That's strict, but we're talking about life safety.
Before we go into this, I want to back up and capture something on the audio track for Nathaniel. And then we skipped over post orders, so I'm going to read something, and then the section we added in on post orders, you can kind of goes in conjunction with this. So, okay. The supervisor's first opportunity to observe officers should take place at all the shift briefing. So this is what we talked about a little bit earlier when we did the exercise. Prior to the commencement of each shift, officers should line up facing the supervisor, regardless of the number of officers present. So I'm going to start that over. The supervisor's first opportunity to observe officers should take place at the shift briefing. Prior to the commencement of each shift, officers should line up facing the supervisor, regardless of the number of officers present. Inspections and briefings should take place in the area free of interruption or pedestrian traffic. Supervisors should observe each officer from the bottom up, concluding by walking behind the line and observing haircuts from the rear as well as the back of uniform shirts and trousers. Where problems or violations of the institution's written uniform policy are observed, the officer will be informed of the violation and, where possible, told to correct it prior to beginning work. A written notation will be made in the officer's file, and a log of the inspection and briefing will be kept. In the briefing portion of the process, officers will be informed of any special attention required, posts assigned, previous incidents affecting assignments, or other announcements. This process should be repeated each shift. When time allows, supervisors will present a portion of an ongoing training program to the assembled officers at the time of shift change and inspection. Supervisors may be required to prepare a lesson plan or select a portion of an existing lesson plan for presentation. Okay, so we skipped over post orders. So each officer should have in his or her possession a copy of post orders for their assignment on that day. Newly assigned officers should be asked to produce their copy at inspection. It is advisable to have post orders reduced to a 3x5 card, laminated and available for distribution. Post orders should be brief, concise, and no more than 1 page in length. They give direction as to the basic tasks and restrictions required for that particular post. Supervisors need to know and remember the post orders for every post they supervise and have a copy available. Supervisors should also have a copy of the Visitor Code of Conduct or Visitor Rules. So some samples of some of these things are in those packets, as you probably stumbled across already, including a supervisor's checklist is included in each packet. It is advisable to use this as a guideline, modified where you prefer, to assure consistency and expected results from your rounds throughout your area of responsibility. Our motto is, if you don't write it down, it didn't happen. This checklist gives you another tool for documentation. Some institutions have placed post orders, schedules, incident reports, and other documents online or formatted on a tablet. Whether you write it, enter it, or post it doesn't matter. As long as it's documented, you won't lose it.
Okay, thank you. So we wrote up and expanded on the post orders, and we included them in the packet to give you a sample. As Rob mentioned, every single job, every different job that you supervise needs to have a set of written instructions. What happens, unfortunately, is people get the wrong idea of what those instructions are supposed to include. They have bulletins that come out on a regular basis or special events, and they stick them all in the same stack, and you end up with a 3-ring binder with 50 things in there. Well, you're not going to read that every day, and you can't be expected to remember that. It's nice to have references by date of special orders or bulletins or special events, but the post orders, the one that I passed along to you, is for whether you're using a contract officer or an off-duty police officer, whatever, to tell them, here's what you do. You show up X number of minutes before the shift in the proper uniform, you check out the keys, you stand at briefing, and you do the following. You're not allowed to have visitors. You're not allowed to bring your dogs or cats or chickens or whatever. You got to say that. and you need to give them a copy of it so that they have them. And the difficult thing is, if you've got 15 posts that you supervise, you gotta know what each one of those are. And the easiest way I know how to do it is to have a copy of those orders that you can carry with you, so that you can refer to them, but you can't tell somebody that this door has to be opened every day before closing to let people out, let the children, you can't tell them to do that if you didn't know that, and you won't know it unless you've got it in writing somewhere telling you that that's what this post requires. And some things change, and you may have to change those post orders. But I'm assuming, do you all use those also in writing, post orders? For each position, you do that here now? Including your dispatcher, they need to have a set of post orders to say, these are what the functions are that the dispatcher performs. Okay, so, this is a little different. I don't know if we ought to take a break, or you guys need a break? Should we do that now? We've been doing, how long have we been on? About an hour?
Yeah.
Let's take a 10-minute break and then start with this next section. And the restrooms are around the corner.